Apple has got a top secret plan to change the iPhone forever, but it's not gonna happen in the way you're expecting. Let me try to explain what's going on behind the scenes at Apple, why things are so dramatic, how this is gonna change your iPhone in a major way, and also, let me just sort of start by showing you a clip that Apple wishes they could completely scrub and delete from the internet. But sorry, Tim, I've got a copy.
Technologists have teased us with this dream that you're going to be able to talk to technology and it'll do things for us. That's a feature in the iPhone 4S we call Siri.
What is the weather like today?
Here's the forecast for today.
Apple took a big swing back in 2011 when they introduced this all-new virtual assistant called Siri. The idea was that it was going to be a really big deal and a feature that would change future iPhones forever. It could not only tell you information in real time, but it could sort of manage your calendar and reminders and send messages, and over time, the assumption was that it was gonna get way smarter, way more useful, and really be like the virtual assistant that sci-fi movies had always sort of promised we would have. But I think we all know that that didn't actually end up happening. Instead, this video proves that even like up to 2024, Siri really didn't change all that much or get much smarter. And also the guy that was sort of the father of Siri, the guy who actually presented it on stage, this was Scott Forstall, he would sort of be pushed out of Apple by sort of Tim Cook and senior leadership because of the whole Apple Maps debacle. So Apple really wishes you just sort of forget he ever existed at the company, and also that they hope you would forget that Siri back in 2011 wasn't much dumber than Siri is today. And I wish we could get all the juicy details about what happened behind the scenes, because I feel like this was set up to be one of those monumental shifts for Apple. Because think about it, if Apple had got this right, they could have been this AI-driven, AI revolutionary company years and years and years before the AI buzzword took sort of the tech world by storm. Siri could have been this really amazing, useful thing that really made you want to go out and spend the money to buy an iPhone. But instead, Apple fumbled over and over again. You had Google Assistant and other sort of competitors come and really take over the space. And then over the last couple of years, obviously like with the whole AI thing, things have exploded and the virtual assistant world has changed, and really the whole tech world has changed, and Apple has just lagged super far behind the competition. And over the years, Apple has been facing increasing competition in so many areas here for their products, specifically with the iPhone. I mean, the iPhone on its surface still sort of lacks, I think, a lot of the excitement that it had from sort of the glory days of Steve Jobs, and many just aren't super compelled to buy basically the exact same form factor over and over and over again. People are hanging on to their phones longer than ever. They don't see a reason to upgrade. So that is an issue for Apple. The other issue is that Siri, despite a lot of attempts to sort of rebrand it and make it better, has not gotten functionally any better or any more useful. You see all these comparison videos online showing it dumber than ever, and then you've got Google Assistant and you've got Amazon's Alexa and all these different things that have overtaken it. Then you drop like the AI chat bombs of, you know, OpenAI, for example, and what ChatGPT can do, and it just makes Siri look super stupid and limited. And Apple sort of sees where the trends are going and they know they need to do something. So wouldn't it be great if they could sort of, I don't know, solve two problems with one by sort of incorporating all this new AI into the iPhone? That's what they plan to do, but we've heard that they spent years trying to do this, playing catch up. They spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to try to come back in this space, and they sort of had nothing to show for it because we've heard internally, after spending all this money, they just couldn't make anything work. So they got a little desperate and made an interesting move that I don't think anyone saw coming. What Apple announced back in June was that they were in fact coming out with their own AI solution, this amazing Apple Intelligence thing, which that term encompasses a bunch of different things. But one of the very strikingly un-Apple things they also announced was a very unique partnership with OpenAI. They're sort of the undisputed, or maybe disputed, leader in this space. They've got ChatGPT, they've got all these amazing tools, Apple is sort of relying on them in a very big way to make their new AI magic happen. What's so interesting here is that this is super controversial and makes Apple vulnerable, something they'd never want to be, for three big reasons. The first is that they sort of had to do this. Now, say what you will about Apple, but they've definitely taken this very firm stance on privacy. This is a bold, fundamental right that they believe in, which is great. The problem with that, though, is that it really has not allowed them to advance their AI and machine learning stuff as much as other companies who collect a bunch of info and use it to their advantage, like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and others. So because of their reliance on being so private, they've got to rely on some external source to be more knowledgeable and sort of feed in that external knowledge in a way that isn't harvesting their users' personal data, which is where this sort of OpenAI integration comes in, sort of a win-win on the surface. Though with that reliance on this external source comes a reliance on OpenAI and ChatGPT and other technologies, and Apple sort of makes themselves a little bit vulnerable to the whims that could change in that world. And also it means that Apple cannot truly own this end-to-end. And if you know anything about Apple, you know that they love to dominate entire spaces and own the entire experience from bottom to top. They make the hardware, they make the software, they make the ecosystem. In this case with Apple Intelligence, they brand it very much like an Apple thing, but that ChatGPT component, and I'm sure the OpenAI component sort of as a whole, is not fully disclosed as being as big of a part as it really is. And I think that the brain that they offer there is probably a huge component to the system that I'm sure Apple really wishes they don't have to have in their system, but they do for now, and they're dependent on it. So Apple wants to fully dominate this space, which they can't. They are reliant on another company, something Apple never wants to do. And then the third particularly interesting thing, which is fascinating, is that Apple is actively working, maybe paying, maybe not paying directly a company for this partnership, but they're working with a company that might be actively working to destroy them. The reason I say that is because OpenAI, or I guess to a certain extent, their sort of CEO, Sam Altman, is working with Johnny Ive, the famed ex-Apple design guru, on a new secret project, this new sort of wearable AI device, and a big investor in that project, the main source of funding by many accounts, is Lorraine Powell Jobs, that Jobs, the widow of CEO Steve Jobs. So you've got a lot of, Apple money there with Lorraine Powell Jobs teaming up with Johnny Ive, ex-Apple design guy, going into OpenAI, who is making this new device that must, in a sense, compete with something Apple's doing. But at the same time, you've got that going on over here. Over there, you've got OpenAI, who's working hand in hand with Apple to make Apple Intelligence. It is just crazy to me that this is happening, and I'm sure Apple does not want to be in this position. It's sort of like what they're doing with Google to a certain extent. We all know that Google is paying Apple billions and billions of dollars to be the default search engine on Apple devices. But at the same time, they're spending money and giving money to Apple. They're trying to take money away from Apple by building up the Pixel line to compete with the iPhone. This is sort of the reverse of that. Apple, whether they're paying them through exposure or paying them directly, they're sort of working very heavily here with OpenAI at the same time that OpenAI is maybe working on a competing device to the iPhone and what Apple's doing. It's just a very interesting, dramatic sort of tale behind the scenes here that I'm super curious to see how it plays out. So weird that you've got Johnny Ive kind of working in a sense directly against Apple here on this new AI device. So long story short, things are a little complicated right now, and I'm sure that things will not be this way forever. We know that Apple wants to dominate in this space. We know they want to have the end-to-end control, and I'm sure that over time, Apple's going to develop either other partnerships or just other solutions to make it so they can own the entire thing. But they're sort of a little desperate right now because they need to have the Apple Intelligence. They need to have some sort of AI thing with their products. So they're very reliant on it right now. The good thing is that if this is successful in converting people to buy iPhones and Macs and iPads, and if it really is as useful as it is, then Apple has sort of this wave they can ride and sort of gets people back and excited, and also just keeps sort of Apple competitive in this space. And I'm sure over the next couple of years, they can, quietly exit that partnership and do their own thing. On the other hand, if they did nothing and Apple was to miss out on this, or if they failed, or if Siri was to be bad, it's just a really bad look for Apple. Apple not only needs to be seen as an innovator in the AI space, but they also need to get people to buy iPhones, iPads, Macs, and all that stuff, which is why they're so heavily talking about Apple Intelligence with everything they do right now. So the iPhone is going to change in a major way with Apple Intelligence. We're already starting to sort of see the beginnings of this with iOS 18.1, and more updates are coming that'll bring all these features. Curious to see how this plays out. And I'm even more curious to see how this behind the scenes drama is going to play out. And if Apple can totally separate themselves from OpenAI and maybe they can sort of be a direct competitor to them, how that's going to play out. But for now, Apple couldn't do this on their own. They need their main competitor, so they're working with them. The same time that Johnny Ive might be working to take down Apple in an odd way. I don't know the behind the scenes of this. I'm super curious to see how it plays out. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? Let me know down below. Do you think this Apple Intelligence thing is gonna be a big thing? Do you think it's not gonna be a big thing? Do you think Apple should have partnered with sort of the enemy, quote unquote, so to speak here, to make this happen? Do you think it was necessary? Or do you think that Apple should have just gone at it themselves, stayed super private, super secure, for better or worse? Let me know, drop a comment down below. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for your support. I am Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle. I'll see you all in the next one.